I've never been good at guessing which cards were going to be particularly useful in upcoming formats. And today, I wanted to talk about 5 cards that I definitely thought were going to be pretty playable and or game breaking and turned out to be honestly pretty shitty. So, the first one is Rebound. Now, I have over 18 copies of this card. I have 2 pages in a binder filled with it and then some extra copies laying around. And maybe someday it'll be good, but probably not. Let's take a look at the effect. When your opponent activates a spell card, trap card, or monster effect that returns a cards from the field to the hand, negate that effect, and if you do, send 1 card from your opponent's hand at random or from their side of the field to the graveyard. When this set card is destroyed by your opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, draw 1 card. So I actually think that if things end up in a particular way where there's a deck that is meta, and the whole point of it is to bounce its own cards back to the hand to summon stuff from the deck or something crazy like that. Basically, if there's a whole deck where the point is bouncing their own cards, I feel like Rebound could actually be a really good choice. It's a total blowout. I never thought it would be good against compulsory evacuation device or stuff like that, because relying on your opponent bouncing your cards to your hand is just really bad. I mean, no one was citing this against Magispector Kieran, but if a whole deck revolved around bouncing its own cards, then you would constantly have chances to activate this. And I mean, it's a total blowout. It negates a card, and then you get to either discard a card out of their hand or send a card from the field to the graveyard. That's actually pretty crazy. And even though this card never saw the limelight, I don't want to count it out yet. Not just because I have a bunch of copies, I don't really care too much about selling them. I actually really happen to like the artwork on them. But I think this card could actually be playable if a deck like that comes out. And I don't know if that'll ever happen, but if it does, I'll be ready. The next card was Skill Prisoner. Now, I should add the caveat that this card has actually appeared in just a few top 8 regional profiles, maybe a YCS profile, but I don't think so. And it's a very specific card for not a lot of situations, but so what it does is target 1 card you control this turn. When any monster effect resolves that targeted that card at activation, negate that effect. During either player's turn, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 card you control this turn. When any monster effect resolves, the target of the card at activation, negate that effect. This is sort of like a worse breakthrough skill, and that's probably why it's not good. I thought about playing this against Effect Veiler. It's pretty good against that. It was I don't know, it's just okay against a lot of random cards. I mean, I really thought about playing this when people were playing Effect Veiler and +1 Fire Fists were big because it was good against Fire Fist Bear. It's not that great, okay? I'll admit it. But in a world where there's a ton of different targeting monster effects and you have cards that you absolutely need to resolve, maybe this card would be good. And like I said, this is probably, of all the cards on this list, this is the most played one by far. It has popped up in some topping decks if the format is just right. And even with Rebound and with Skill Prisoner, it's just a matter of the format aligning in a certain way to meet their activation on a regular basis, on a consistent basis, almost every single turn. Then they're actually good. If that's not happening, then there's sort of subpar trap cards that are outclassed by cards like Solemn Strike or Solemn Warning or Torrential Tribute or any number of trap cards, but maybe someday. The third one is a card I think a lot of people thought would be playable, DOOMSTAR Magician. So this was one of the earliest cards to come out when Pendulums came out, and seems really good on paper. So once per turn, you can discard 1 card and then target 1 card in either player's Pendulum zone, destroy that card, and if you do, draw 1 card. Seems good, right? I mean, it's an easy +1 effect. You can pop your opponent's stuff. I thought about using it with Perform Age Plush Fire when that came out. I mean, Pendulums benefit from destroying themselves, right? So this card would naturally be a good fit. I think this card actually would have been played if it was a Pendulum monster. I'm I'm almost positive it would have been played if it was a Pendulum monster. But the fact that it was an effect monster that didn't really do anything else sort of made it bad. I know people thought about playing this card. I know Jeff Jones actually hyped this up for like a couple weeks, and it was pretty expensive when he was knowing that he was trying to pick him up. I never really saw any great success that I know of, and I really do feel that falls on it not being a pendulum monster. I mean, can you imagine if this card was a pendulum and the pendulum effect was like anything that like was not shitty, or if it was just like the same effect copy and pasted? Like that would have been amazing, especially like in Perform H, Perform Pels. It would just been such a good choice, and it was dark and it was level 4, so you can make Evil Swarm Nightmare with it. I mean, people were playing the weirdest dark level 4 monsters just to make Evil Swarm Nightmare in the mirror match. And yeah, I feel bad for this card. I mean, it had a lot of potential. It never realized that potential because it was way too slow and didn't have any synergy with the deck set you would want to be playing it in or against. And that was sort of, it's not his fault that it's a bad card, but I think a lot of people thought that this would be actually pretty playable and a reasonable side deck choice against pendulums. Obviously, it was just more efficient to play cards like Twister or MST as opposed to this, but the free draw seemed pretty alluring at the time. The next one is a little older than the others. You might not even know it exists, but Hidden Temples of the Necro Valley is a continuous spell card. It was released in Primal Origins, I believe. No, maybe Judgment of the Light, one of those two sets, and you can activate it only if both a Gravekeeper's monster and a Necro Valley are on the field. Neither player can special summon monsters except Gravekeeper monsters. If a Gravekeeper monster or a Necro Valley is not on the field, destroy this card. So I was actually really afraid of Gravekeepers, actually. Because the cards that came out on this set were like, there was a bunch of Gravekeepers in it, and, this was in Legacy of the Valiant. I'm sorry. I just remembered. So this is in Legacy of the Valiant, and that, like, had a bunch of Gravekeepers cards, and I actually thought they were going to be, like, the best deck ever. It had, like, the trap card that negated stuff, and that card was actually played, but this one really wasn't. I thought it was just, like, a Vanity's Emptiness on steroids. I was still pretty below average at the game during that time, so that probably explains why I thought Gravekeepers were going to be so good, and then they weren't, because I didn't really realize that, like, decks that revolve around floodgating your opponent aren't really reliable for long tournaments, and Necro Valley already floodgates your opponent a ton, so it's not like you really need an extra floodgate, if that makes any sense. So this card just was completely out of place. It was really slow, especially because most of the Gravekeepers on your first turn, you actually wanted to be setting them face down, so you couldn't even activate this card. And let me tell you, I was very, very afraid of this going into Legacy of the Valiant format, and then it turned out to be a huge flop, and I was very relieved. So shout out to me for being dumb. Thank God this card never caught on. The last card is a card I always bring up, or at least it feels like I always bring up, Construction Train Signal Red. Now, Dragons of Legend had a lot of really great cards in it. It had Fire and Ice Hand, it had Curry Bandit, it had Soul Charge. So this had a lot of competition, but I really, really thought this card was going to be good. And I think it is in some regards. Probably not now. I'm pretty sure now it's just been completely power crept. But you might have seen this card pop up in a few of my older deck profiles from like a year or two ago. I played it in my Dolces. I played it in Zectors, are the main ones. I just like this card in level 3 decks. So when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, change the attack target to this card and proceed to damage calculation. This card cannot be destroyed by battle. So basically, it blocks one attack and puts level 3 monster on your board. Maybe that doesn't sound broken anymore. It's really hard talking about cards like this in regards to formats that we're in right now, where you see like Zodiacs plusing 1,000,000 and True Dracos and True Kings, stuff like that. But when this came out, the game was still pretty slow, and I thought it was going to be at least semi-playable. It can block up to 2 attacks because it blocks the first one, and then they just can't get over it, obviously. So I guess, so they can't get over that first battle, but the problem is that it's only protected by that one battle, and then it can be destroyed. So it can block, like I said, up to 2 attacks, no more than that, but it buys you time, puts level 3s on the board, but it's just not it doesn't do anything else. It doesn't do enough. It doesn't plus at all. It's not like Gores where like you get a token. If you got a token, maybe it'd be playable. But I thought it'd be good. I still want this card to be good. It definitely never will. And looks like a frog, so shout out to frogs. Anyway, that's the 5 cards that I thought would be good that turned out to be pretty bad. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I have a lot of other cards I thought would be good and then turn out to be terrible. So if you like this, please let me know. Give me suggestions of cards that you think I could talk about, or maybe ones that you thought would be good and then ended up being terrible. And one last shout out, I wanted to draw your attention to that I started a Patreon. That video, the announcement video, is actually the last video I posted. I'll post it at the end of this video as well to link it if you want to check it out. I hopefully explain myself well in that video why I need to start a Patreon, and feel free to contribute to the channel. Anyway, I will see you guys later. Bye.